So today what we will do, we will today insert, we will check how we can do the insert, update and upsert operations on whatever we have discussed yet, on that only. So like I said, today we will continue with the same org. I already shared the credentials. I will also ask them to mail you guys so you can access the both orgs. Okay, it's not an issue. Let me do one thing. Let me try to switch again. I think something wrong with this network. Okay, so let me recap what we have discussed and then we'll start. So as for now, what we have done is we have used one data raptor to give us some information, do some SQL query based on user's query. It is returning us the value, right? We also delete that. Okay, so when we search here something, to the next, it will in the back end, what it will do, it will make a query and based on the query, it is returning the response. Okay, now what is the requirement is, let's say we want to change something in the industry or in something in the phone number, and when we click on the next button, it should actually update this value. Okay, in the backend, it should actually update this value, and when we go back and check, it should give us the returns the updated value. And if in the previous screen, if user is trying to search something which is not a valid account, then it should in the backend it should create an account. Okay, for that purpose we use data raptor again, but this time we have to set another type of the data raptor. So in the backend, what they guys does is basically they basically created a record types in data raptor object. Okay, one record type that we have we have checked is let me show you. We already checked what is extract, right? So one record type we have already worked, which is extract, which is nothing but do the SQL query of multiple objects, right? The next object type that today we want to discuss is load. So what this load basically does, it is basically use these three operations: insert, update and upsert. Okay, so apart from delete, it will do all those three operations. Okay, the concept of using data raptor will remain the same. We will have to take an eye on what mapping that we are providing instead of inserting it. I mean, in the previous screen we are just making a query. Here, since we are doing the operations in the DML, so they also maintain the batch size. That means your data raptor load can handle more than one record. Okay, we will discuss about it when we actually work on a list or a table where there are multiple objects get involved, and we want to, like how we normally do in Salesforce, there's a list view we want to edit and then we want to fire. In that case, we need to handle the batch size. So let's talk about the batch size here for 2 minutes. So what this batch size basically does is, so if nothing is provided, that means your data raptor will take all the inputs and do the operation in one go. Okay, that means all the data will be used for a DML purpose in one go. Okay, but let's say you have created, now let's take the same example. Let's say you have one account. Okay, inside the account there are 10 contacts and you have written some triggers on contact object. And once, I mean, when you perform the updation, And if you have more than 2 accounts, then that means total 22 records you need to update. 2 accounts and 10 contacts. Getting it? 10 each contacts. So the structure is, let me show you. There is an account. Okay. And there are 10 contacts. Okay. Now we have 2 account data. This is account 1 and this is account 2. Total DML rows will be 22, correct? 10 contacts and 1 account, 10 contacts, 1 account, total 22. But you have written a trigger in contact. What this trigger is doing, it is doing something in the backend which is taking some time, and you are performing all those operations in one go. In that case, what in the backend will happen, you may probably reach to CPU time limit exception because you have written a unbulkified trigger, which is something not which you need to take care because maybe some other team members worked on it. In that case, Velocity provides an option to control this through batch size. We can reduce the batch size. Let's say we can reduce it to 1. In that case, what will happen? It will first insert 1 account. Once it done, it will again pick the 1 account, and then once it done, then will again pick the 1 account. So how we normally do in batch class, where we define what will be the batch size. So this will behave like a similar way. Okay, but if you not providing anything, that means it will work on the default mode, which means all in one go. Okay, now let me quickly give a name. Right, it will be load. Now let's talk about this. In the previous classes, when we discuss about extract, we selected yeah, we selected input type as JSON and output type as JSON again. But here you can see there is only just one default way, which is out S object. Why this is so? Let me tell you. Whatever value you're getting from whatever value you're feeding to a data raptor, it could be in JSON format, it could be in XML, it could be in S object, or it could be a custom. But in the back end, it will always be S object because your Salesforce will only deal with S objects, right? You cannot pass any JSON to your Salesforce to get update your account. That's why it will always be S object only. Okay. Any questions on it? Getting it right. Whatever value you want to feed to your data raptor, it will be any format. It could be JSON, depends on from where you're calling it. But at the end of the day, whatever your data raptor is doing, it will feeding the data back to Salesforce. And in the Salesforce, we have only S object permit, right? We cannot pass JSON to get updated anything in the backend. That's why it is S object. Again, the permission set and the permissions, not permission set, and the description will remain the same. So let's save it. Okay, so this is something, this is the screen of how a data raptor load will work. So your load will not to delete operation. Make sure this thing, because in the interview question, they may ask you how can we delete any row. So they can also ask you if we can use load to delete it. Okay. Now let's use the same concept of configuring the object. First thing is the same. You need to first click the account. So this will be treated as which object you are referring for. OK, the mapping and everything will be done from field here. The formula, again, the concept of formula here is also remain the same, whatever in the extract. And if I take you to the key, you will see this is also looking similar ways. Our previous record was looking in data raptor, right? It is the same. It's just the interface type is load in the backend, different record type, and they are handling it by that only. Okay, let's now talk about the fields. But before we talk about the fields, let me first tell you that how normally we work in load. So here it is asking us the if I click here plus, here it is asking us a JSON path for defining the input, and here it will pass us the object field names, right? It will directly tell us the what is the name. Let's say this is the name field. So here we can directly configure the name. But from where we can configure this input JSON path? This is the question. So normally how I basically does it, I go to my OmniScript or wherever place I want to fire my data raptor. Okay, let's say here I want to fire the data raptor. I click on next. And after this stage, I want a next button again, which get updated, which fire in the backend and get my job done. So up to that point, I will run my script. Let's say there are 10 steps. Okay, step one, step two, and totally 10 steps. And after step two, you want to fire your data raptor. So keep your OmniScript run up to that level, and then click on data. Okay, and copy whatever JSON it is returning. Okay, paste it somewhere. Remove all those things that you actually don't require. We need to take care about this only, right? Now, let's say we want to configure go back to the data raptor. Here we want to provide what is the name and what is the JSON path. So here we let's say need to bind this. So write this way using this, write name column, this semicolon account, that go back, use it here. Okay, so that is how we normally set the bindings. We don't need to take care about the from where we need to part the JSON. It will automatically given by the UI tool that is basically providing you the JSON. In this case, let's say this is. Am I audible?
There was a little pause, but now you are audible.
Okay, just a second. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I have configured the name field. Now let's the other fields as well. So we just need to change the name of the last node and everything will remain the same. And here we can type city. Okay, whatever value you are referring here, make sure you're typing it correctly. Let's say this is account city, then you need to make sure which city we want to populate the value for it. Is it a billing or it is the shipping or it's a different field? Okay, so that we need to take care. Let me configure the other fields. Industry. One more, which is phone. It's phone only. Yeah. Here you also need to take care about the case sensitivity. It is case sensitive. All right, so we are done with the mapping. Now let me ask you one question. Let's say we want to do a update operation here or upsert operation here. If I only do this, does it work?
Key field need to pass.
Right. So there is no key field that we have yet configured. So here in the load, the concept is same. If you fire this load in this data, what it will do, it will simply go and insert your record. Okay, let's first do that. So here again, there is an option to take a preview. In the preview, it is expecting a JSON, right? So we don't need to do anything. Here we need to go again, copy the same JSON, paste it here and click on the uh, requiring. Yeah. Now we need to click on the execute. In general, it doesn't take that much. Yeah, so it return us a value, and you can also check what is the server time it took. Normally it doesn't took that much, not sure why it took that long. So here the key here is, I mean the concept here is, if you not providing anything as a key, and if you want to fire this load, it will always act like a insert operation. So let me write down. Here you can say on what we have done, we only created the mapping. Okay, then it will work like a insert. Okay, now let me do one thing. Let me clear the name field here. Okay, let's also open this account. So in the account creation, we already know the name field is a required field. Let's say what if we are not providing any required information, or we are violating any validation rules or anything that in the backend we are controlling. So how it will work here? So if I simply click on the execute button, you will say nothing will populate, and in the error message, you will see required field missing account name. So all those things in the backend will be taken care of here as well, because this is running on the top of your triggers, on the top of your validation rules and everything. So if you have configured any trigger that is throwing add error, it will be shown here. If you have configured any uh, uh, validation rules, this will also show here as well. Third operation, we are not writing those queries, but here it is behaving like that only. You can see the record is created. Now let's say we want to update some account. I mean, we don't want to run any query for insertion. Let's see how we can do that and what changes we need to do here. So for that purpose, first thing that we need to do, we need to create a mapping. In general, that mapping is a ID field, but this is not required here. I mean, when we create a thing, let's say select ID from count, okay, where ID is equal to this, whatever we give, and let's name. So this part, if we are not providing this, that means it will insert that particular account. But if we providing this, there is an option which ID you want to pass. You can also give here AND operation, and then in AND you can also define any another ID. External ID is equal to this. Okay, whatever value that you will provide, it will run a query behind that, and it will return the data, and it will do the DML for that data. Okay, similar ways here, what we need to first, we need to, let's say we need to configure the ID. Okay, so for that we need to do this, and you need to go here and give the ID. Okay, and then here you need to define the ID, and you can see there are two checkboxes. In this, you can see there are four checkboxes total. Let's talk about this two first. These checkboxes are for all fields. This is also there, and this is also on the name field, same for phone field as well. Whatever key that we want to give, we need to make sure we check this upsert key and is required for upsert. That's strange. I'm clicking on it and let me read. So there are two things, upsert key and is required for upsert. These two checkboxes, when we check, it will work like a this is extract. Yeah, so we need to check this both checkboxes. Okay, what this checkbox in the backend doing, whenever you check this, it will be considered, okay, this is the external key. I need to create my query based on that. And this checkbox will tells, okay, you want to do the update operation. Okay, so the purpose of these two checkboxes is to identify users are basically doing the update operation only, not the upsert operation. Okay, if we check the both checkbox, then it will perform the update only. Let me write that. We need to create the mapping here, right? Second thing that we need to do is we need to check this checkbox, update upsert key, and we need to check this checkbox is required for upsert. Then it will be work as a okay. The next, yeah, let's first do that and then we'll talk about it. In the preview, I'm just adding one another node for ID. Okay, here I'm using the same ID. Okay, now let's go and change the name. Or let's say I'm changing this to 88. Okay, in the previously it was 50. I have updated the phone number and now it is 6488. Okay, and yeah, let me now execute it. Okay, it is says it created another. No. Now again we need to go here and keep an eye here. It updated the record to 488. Okay, so why it does it? Because it found that okay, in our cases, in our case, we find a external ID and this ID is having both checkbox as checked. We can also, there's no such limitation in Salesforce in Velocity where we can only define one record as a unique ID. We can even check those checkbox here as well. Then it will also treat it this thing as a unique ID. But in the backend, what it will do, it will create a AND condition for us. Okay, now it will do this query. Currently it is doing this query where ID is equal to this and external ID is equal to this. If we define any field here as well, okay, let's say we define industry as external key. In that case, what in the backend it will do, it will fire this where industry is equal to some value that you will provide. So this query it will fire in the case if we provide two thing as external ID. Okay, in best practices, we actually only provide one thing as a unique ID, but again, totally depend on the structure or any business requirement that you are following. There's no such limitation in Velocity that you can only use one ID as a unique ID or external ID. Okay, that's totally behave like a similar way how we do it in the normal Apex classes. Now let's talk about the upserts, how we can handle the upsert operations. Okay, in upsert, we just need to uncheck this checkbox. In that case, what will happen? Even, yeah, I just uncheck that. If I go to the preview and if I update it, let's say 99. And if I execute it, okay, it is returning the same record. And if I refresh, it will change it to 99. But if we simply don't give any ID, then it will simply insert a record for the same name. Okay, let's do that. Change the name to test123. Okay, you can say it provided us a different ID. Size the ID is different, this ID is different. It simply created another record. So me write those things. Create mapping, yes, we need to click on upsert key, yes, and we also need to uncheck this. To uncheck that, and then it will work like a upsert. Or you can also say that we don't need to do anything on this field. I'm just highlighting this because sometimes we ask the same question in the interviews. What is the difference in upsert and update, and how you can check you can do that in data raptor? Then you need to tell that thing specifically, like we don't need to check this checkbox. If we uncheck this, then it will work as an upsert. If we check this, it will work as an update. Okay, any questions here? Are we good on that? Here, one more thing actually. At this level, you can configure account, you can configure different objects, and here then you can define the mapping of those objects also. Okay, as of now, we only configure the account, but let's say we also want based on the JSON that you're passing. But based on the JSON that you're passing, your data will be referred here as well. So your like your extract action, your load action also supports multiple objects. Okay, here you just need to provide the name, but make sure if you're passing like more than two objects or three objects, and you're thinking that okay, maybe in future you are gonna run this query in a list, you gonna run your data raptor in a list mode, then you need to take care about the batch size. That is an important thing, because in usually we configure, we load and do all those operations in a sandbox, right? And in sandbox there is no much data that we have only one or two data, and we do the testing based on that, right? But when it go to production, then it may provide some issues, maybe in performance issues or some exceptions. So best practice says, that is for something that I observed, if you're configuring multiple objects, make sure you also take care about the but if you do define a batch size, if you define the batch size, you need to make sure that your batch size may uh, run on backend mode. Okay, you need to tell your user that it will be async and it will not be async mode. Okay, so this is something you can say trade-off. If you want to run something in the back end and it is taking more time, then we need to highlight that thing, that it will be a async job, which will probably not happen at the same go, but maybe after once the environment is available, it will do those actions. Okay, so it's kind of trade-off. But yeah, as a developer, we have to take care what timing it is taking. Okay, then only we will decide whether we need to make it as async or at the sync mode. All right, let's do one thing now. Let's configure this data raptor to our Omni scripts. But meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can ask. We will anyhow discuss about the formula.
See here, when we are going with the nested one, say like account, one account, let's assume we are updating five contact. I'm just giving an
Mhm,
example. So if you go
mhm.
with that approach, the one update we are performing will be considered as one transaction. Say like account update and contact update will consider as one transaction, I hope.
Right, right.
Okay.
That totally depend which type of JSON you are creating. That is also something, because here the structure is controlled by JSON. If this is the JSON, let's say this is the account, and inside the account you're using contact here itself, then they will update the account and then they will update the contact. But if you have a different node for contact, then you can change the definition here as well. We'll discuss about it when we actually do the operation in the list views.
Okay.
Okay, then we will talk about it. But yeah, okay, let's go back and configure the data raptor load here. So this is our normal OmniScript. In the actions, you will see an option data raptor load. I think extract only. And you want to configure after this. Okay. Here you need to give the name account update. This is yeah. Is that post action? This one. Yeah. So I dropped the extract action. Since the data raptor is in load, then we need to use the post action. Okay. And here the concept remain the same. If you use data raptor inside any step, it will behave like a button. And if you use it outside a step, it will be controlled through next button only. Okay. Inside that, we need to do the preview. Now, one thing that we have not configured correctly, which is the ID field. In the preview, I directly put the ID here, right? So for that, we need to drag one element. Yeah, let me first run this script up to that level. Okay, so where is the ID? This is the ID, right? So see, in that case, wherever you feel there is a change in the JSON structure, you have two options. One is go and update your tree here, whatever you have configured in the field, right? We have configured account block to ID. So it is expecting us ID inside this somewhere here. Okay, so you have two options. First, go and change it here. Second is go and update here. So here, whatever you feel is more suitable for you, you can do that. So in my case, what I can do is if I configure ID here, okay, in this screen step 2, need to check the I don't want to see if I drag ID here, it will be directly visible to users. In that case, I need to go and disable the visibility. So it is taking two steps for me if I want to configure that. So I will not go with this path. What I will do is I will directly go and update here. I will directly use ID. And I here is small, right? Yeah. So I will directly go and update the ID in the JSON of my data raptor. Okay. In now what I will do, I will just refresh the page again. Okay. Do a preview. Me here. Yeah. Just keep an eye on this. Let's do one thing. Let's make it 10. And then since previously there was no next button, right? Now it is showing next button. We can click on it. Okay, so I think this is not account ID then. So I think we are not even calling account ID. In that case, we need to go to the extract and return the ID from here. You guys are getting it, right? What we are doing here.
Yeah.
The problem was the ID field was not showing in the JSON. Here, there's no ID field. So I'm just checking. Maybe in the debug, I will get because I can see here ID is configured. Now you can see there are two actions, right? One is this account data search, second is the different one. So here you will get the ID response. Yeah, here we are getting the ID, but it is not anywhere in the structure. So I need to go create a text input text, drag it somewhere and make it disable. Okay, no such option. So see, yeah, it's a good thing we have one concept to study. See, by default, you will not see any option. Let's say I added this ID. Okay, now let's do the preview and then we'll check whether it is showing it correctly or not. Clear the data. Okay, ID is now visible to users. We don't want that, right? So since if I go to the block again and I click on the ID, there's no option to hide it, but we don't want to show this thing to users itself, right? In that case, whatever option that you don't have in a UI, you can click on the edit JSON. Okay, so this JSON will show you all the available options that you can configure in this text. Some of them they directly provided you to use that, and some of them you can directly read and change it. So here you will see there is something called hide, right? You just need to change it to true. Okay, and click back. Now go to the preview, clear the data. So you can see the ID is not visible, but now this time it is showing in the JSON. Now we can refer the same thing again. We can go here. Yeah, I can closing this. The same path. ID is Capsia. Data ID. And something wrong in this org. I'm checking this checkbox. It is. Okay, all right, let's do that only. In that case, it will upsert. It will not do the update operation because we have unchecked this checkbox. Actually, I want to check it, but yeah. Let's run it in that only, and then we'll come back and do the update. Okay, so what we have done is, let me refresh it again. We have to configure both data raptors, right? One data raptor that is returning the value, make sure it is also returning unique keys as well. Okay. Second is we need to put it somewhere so that it will be enabled in the JSON structure. Now I'm using it. Acme. Clicking on next. Okay, we have ID. Now let me do it. Let me make it 00. Click on next. Okay, nothing it showed. It returned us the ID here itself. Now let's copy the same. Okay, the phone number with the value 00 is get updated. So that means the integration between all two data raptors and one OS is working fine. The key concept is like you will see the same exceptions when you actually work on like the ID field is not mapping. Maybe in the data raptor it is returning the response, and sometimes it is also happening your individual key that you are returning to from your JSON. Sometimes it is also blank, maybe some data issue or something, right? So that part we also need to handle before we make a call to our data raptor. We need to throw an exception like those fields are missing, please fill those fields. So we need to add a step, and there we use our rendering part. Based on that, we route our users to that page. Okay, like let's say here we have used industry as an external ID or external key. which is the requirement is before we make any DML operation, we want to first validate whether the industry is having any value or not. Okay, we have a number of options that we can do here. The better one is that we have actually learned is we need to control the condition here. We need to first create two screen, right? One screen is to throw the exact exception where we define users, hey, before you go and save, please update this value. Okay, then user go and update that value. Other one is we will discuss, actually we haven't discussed what we need to do in that case. Actually whenever we call a DML operation, we actually verify all those steps. Okay, I think 2-3 classes we need to wait, and then I will discuss about that. So actually this is the same thing. Whenever you submit a form and when you click on submit, it will first verify all your inputs that you have selected from your first screen to the last screen. Okay, and if something is wrong, it will highlight that thing to the previous one. So it will also give us a concept. That means, let's say we are on a, we have configured 10 steps here. Okay, and in step 5 there is something which is required field that user missed, and they click on, they reach to the 10th step and they click on the save button. In that case your script need to send that user back to step 3, right? So those things we will learn in that class. But yeah, make sure the before you run your post action, you need to validate all those things. Okay, I'm just keep giving you a reference. We'll discuss about it how we can do that. But yeah, okay, any questions on it? If no, then there's a small topic that I want to discuss, which is related to the UI. We already discussed like we can create this type of UI where we can control how many fields we want to show in one screen, right? There's also one thing here that I want to discuss. Let's do one thing. Let's change it, which is which is mostly you will use in your projects. We want to create something like that. We want to create 2-column layout, account name, account city, industry, and phone. And we want to also add some padding and margin between both of them. Like here it is very clumsy, right? We want to set first name, then there is a space, then city, similar ways industry, space, and phone. So those things we can directly do in OmniScript. We don't need to take care about this thing from the CSS part. Let's check how we can do that. In that case, first you need to make sure you put it as a, yeah, let's keep it 3 only. Okay, and here instead of calling your next field, what you need to do is you need to go to the display, use headline. Okay, yeah, I will tell you what I'm doing. Let me first configure that option. I'm using a headline before and then after the name. Removing this, making it 3. When I'm dragging after the city, removing the name, making it 3. Same goes for industry. Well, those things uh, we usually do all those things when we don't wait for business or someone to justify and tell us those things. This is something with which we always do. I mean, yeah. Now let's take a preview. Yeah, you can see, right? There is a space that we have handled here. There's a space we handled here. There is a space we handled here. Now let's take no, let's see this. We want to shift this thing here, shift this thing here, and we also need to make something wider. In that case, we can reduce this to 2. Okay, and name we can reduce this to 4. Same goes here. We can reduce it to 2. We can increase it to 4. The point that I want to make here, see, we actually don't need to depend on other systems or the JSON to control the behavior of our UI. We need to explore all the possible ways that Velocity is offering us, right? Even we are here, if I go next, yeah, this time it is looking good. It is looking fine. Now let's say this is something that you've done with the padding. Okay, maybe you don't require this headline here. Maybe you want to say I want to start my name just after this block. That is also fine. But I'm just giving you one reference, like you can add padding here, here and after that as well, right? You don't need to take care about any external system. But this thing we can do here. But apart from those steps, we can't do anything. This is the max styling that we can provide with the help of native OmniScript OmniScript elements, right? We want to add padding, we can do that. But if you say we want to change this color to, let's say orange, from orange we want to set this to Salesforce blue color, right? In that case, we need to use the styling that we can't do. But up to that, we can use it. So one steps that we have saved, we don't need to take care about paddings in our HTTP IDs. Okay, we'll discuss about it. Next thing is this block. See, your block is not only to control the UI, it is also behave the same way how your Salesforce block behave, like this way. You want to show it collapsively, you want to make it open, or you want to load it as a blank, right? Collapsed. This thing we can use. You just need to check this checkbox collapse. What it will do, whenever you load a page, it will not show. When you do this, it will come like a closed window. User need to manually click and then they will see. How why we use this? Let's say there are 10 steps that sorry, there's one step inside the one step we have configured 10 blocks. Okay, maybe some of them we want user to review, some of them we don't want user to review, we want to make it closed, similar ways how we have in the account field. Let's say some of them are open, some of them are closed. Let's say this is the image we don't want user to see, we want to click this to save the page so that user don't need to additionally make scroll down to reach out to the next button. So those things we can directly configure through here as well. You just need to check this checkbox and then it will work fine. So this is one advantage of using block also. Okay. Any questions here? Okay. In the next class, what we will do here, if you follow this structure, you will see this element post action will always fire. That means even I'm not making any changes on the UI, if I'm clicking on the next button, it is doing the update operations again. Okay, that thing we need to control. I mean, we need to create a way where if user is changing something on the page on the screen, then only this data raptor should work. Otherwise, this should not work. Right? This is a genuine situation as well. Let's say you have configured 10 steps and you show already pre-filled information to the users by showing their name, account name, and all those things, and they are fine with this. They don't want to change it. Then why you are making an unnecessary DML operation, which is taking some time in the page as well. And also it is updating the backend updated by those things here, the trackings. Yeah, last modified by last updated date. It will also get updated that thing as well. So we need to control that. So this thing we will discuss tomorrow, like how we can control that. Now I pause for any questions. You can ask any questions. I will also share the credential of this org. Yeah, it is 45 days again. Yeah, you can use both of the org. In the next class, what I will do is I will export this and insert those things into the new org. Okay, then we can use the both orgs. Any questions?
See, while doing that DML operation, we are not mentioning a type, like what type of data that we are inputting. So the velocity is good enough to typecast automatically from, say like what I'm saying, like on a UI, we are taking the integer value. So, but so sorry, in UI, we are taking the string value, but in database, it is configured as an integer field. So we'll say there is a mismatch, right, during the operation. Will the velocity automatically take care of that, or it will directly throw error?
So first of all, if you, let's say you have configured a name field and you casted it in a text field. it will not show anything in the data here. You will not see, let's say this, let me actually do that. Let me find any name field here, a number field. Let's say this annual revenue. Let me configure that quickly. The number field do we have? Yeah, employee, this one. Let's say we go to the main data raptor. And here I'm configuring the employee. Okay. All right. Now see the account employee is a number field. Now let's go back and give it a store it in a text. Okay. And in the same Acme record, employee, let's quickly update the value. Okay, it is already the current value is 680. Okay, now let's go back, take a preview, clear the data. You can see it is returning null. Why it is returning null? Because the type is integer. It is saying number, but we have configured it into a text field. So first exception it will throw here. It will say, hey, I'm not going to show anything because you have not taken care of the record type. Now let's say here the number is, yeah, let's make it 700. Do the next. Okay. Now go back and refresh it. Not update. Even it is not throwing any exception, but it will not update anything. Also, let's do one thing. Let's go back to the JSON, copy the JSON, or you can also check the debug here itself. It is not throwing any error, but it is not updating that particular field itself. Okay. So to answer your question, it will not update, but it will also not throw any exception at this level. Now let's go back and change the approach. Go back to here. I'm just deleting this employee. And this time I'm using a number field. Employee. Okay, I think we need to clear the data. Still it is showing null. That's strange.
Maybe we have to Acme right now.
Yeah, right. I'm just checking whether I configured it correctly or not. So employee, okay, it is actually outside the account. First string null. So what will happen is, even if you let me do it again, go back. Even if you configure a wrong field here, right, it will show some value here itself. Okay. So yeah, let me clear the data. In the backend, it will return the value, but it will not show in the UI. Still, it is throwing null. Let Okay, there are actually two fields now. Let me do one thing, delete one account. Okay, not let me. The employee field is blank. Why it is returning the value here? The label name is employee and the name is number of employees. So here we need to go and change the definition. Output employee. Here we need to change it to number of employee. And now if I take a preview, one thing, let's now clear the data. Now it will work because actually we have referred a wrong field. I directly use the label name. The actually API name is number of employees. Okay. So unable to connect to server. Number of employees also blank. I think some FLS or something is wrong. This is it. Okay, that I will check actually. I think something is wrong. In the next class, we'll start from here itself. I think something is wrong here. Maybe count ID name equal to this. Here it is returning null. I need to check why it is returning null here and why it is showing the value. Let me do a query actually instead of this. In the query it is returning the value, but in data raptor it is not returning the value. That's strange. Okay, see what we did is basically we updated the wrong value here. In the extract path, we use employee, but in the output path, we use number of employee. But so what it is doing in the backend, it is searching for employee field itself.
Yes.
So now it will return the value.
Yes.
You see, now it is returning the value. Now let me revert the query. And and make it name count name contains. Like, okay, I think now it's fine. We also do one thing. Let me uncheck this checkbox. Otherwise, we need to take care about null exceptions. Now, if I go back and clear the data, but here we again need to update the reference of this field to this. In the element name, we can update that, but in the label, we can keep the same. Okay, now it is showing 380, sorry, 680. Now let me do one thing. Let me make it 1 and show it text field. And inside this text, I will use the exact name. Now see, it will show 1601, sorry, 680 here, but it will not show anything in the into the text field. So this is the first thing that we need to take care. We need to open the two window at the same time. We also need to check what your JSON is returning. Okay, it is not showing now. Mhm. I will check this. Actually, in the old org, it was returning some value, even if we configure it in a different field.
I think element name JSON path it should match, right, from the output what we
Uh,
received.
right. Actually, here it will show in the debug panel. In the response, uh, here you will see the value of exact value which your data raptor is returning. But if you make any mistake in the typecasting, it will not show here and here as well. So now if you do the next, now you will see it is returning the correct value, right? And here we will also check. Now let's make it quickly. Okay, it updated that. Now if I clear that, okay, it didn't update. Okay, because in the post actions, we have not configured that. Okay, we have configured this from the extract action. We have configured from OmniScript, but we have not configured it to the extract action here. We need to go to the fields, and here we need to define the exact API. Yeah, we go to the preview and copy that. And number of employee. We go and clear the data. Let's clear it. And Zach do the next. You will see 700 is updated. Now let's do one more time. Let's add text here. Let it save. Yeah. And here I'm using employee one, sorry, employee one. And in the text, I'm using employee. So now what it will do, it will not return any value in this node. And then we will put some value and then we'll check whether it is, yeah, it will update it on the backend or not. Use the Acme, it haven't returned anything. Now I'm using 1000, doing the next. Okay, so it fired the action. There's no error, because if there is error, it will show the error at this level here. But let's also verify this in the output console. You just need to go to the response, and here you will check. If there is any error, you will see the error inside. Instead of error, okay, you will exact see the message here. Now let's do one thing. Let's clear it and check whether it updated 1000 or not. Okay, yeah, we need to make it now 1 and we need to delete that. Or maybe we can make it this one. Let it save. We can also verify directly here. Mm, okay, my net is little slow. Yeah, see, it updated. Okay, so that means in the backend, it will take care about the type, whatever we are giving, it will feed it correctly. So your data raptor load will take care, but your entire path maybe will not work. Okay, getting it?
Yeah.
So see, by default, this case be see. Okay, so see, if you're calling your data raptor somewhere apart from our OmniScript, then we can use any type here. But if we are calling it from OmniScript, then we need to take care which cast we are using here, because if we use it in a wrong field, it will not show data. In that case, user may get confused and then they will start putting some value inside it, and then unnecessarily we will fire this post action, because ideally it should not fire because the data is already there.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, any other questions? Okay, then let's meet tomorrow, and tomorrow we will use the exercise where we will verify to fire this data raptor only when any changes happen. Okay, thanks for joining.
Thank you.